Hey, Marc Millan here. Glad to connect with you today. Thank you for letting me be a part of your day. Today I want to share something that I've learned and pass it on to you. So today's topic is creating a set list, a worship set list. So I want to give you five tips for creating a worship set list. Now, these are things that have worked for me. I've been doing worship for about 15 years. Started out just as a team member, backing up a worship leader, and then I grew in my responsibilities. I started leading teams. I was then hired by a church to be in vocational ministry, and then I've been doing it ever since. And I've had a chance to live in different states and work with different types of churches. So I've kind of had a chance to see how to put these together in different environments. So I hope that these 5 things can really help you. And at the end of it, I want to give you 2 bonus things that I do personally that they just still work for me till today. So I do want to let you know that putting together songs is one of my favorite things to do. I hope it's one of yours as well. And I do think it's one of the most important things we do if you're a worship leader, because the songs stick with people. They stay with people. And in fact, I talk about the importance of that in a book I've written called Leading Worship, 10 Simple Truths. And one of the chapters in here is called Theologians of Song. And I do believe that the songs we put together for people is really impactful and important. So I want to say that before we get started. But if you're ready, we'll jump into number 1. Have a roadmap. Number 1, have a road map. What I mean by that is start with the end in mind. If you have 3 songs, if you have 4 songs, if you have time, sometimes they say, hey, we need 3 or 4 songs, we need 5 songs. Sometimes they say, hey, we're giving you 30 minutes, we're giving you 20 minutes, we're giving you 15 minutes, whatever that is, have a road map. And I always say, start with the end in mind. It doesn't have to be what song you want to end with, but I do want to encourage you to think through the journey that you take people on, because songs, not only the words, the tempo and the style of the song create certain emotions. So you have to think about how you're starting, where you're going in the middle of that process, and then where it lands. And so a lot of times when I'm thinking of putting a set list together, I'm trying to think of, is it a new song that I have to introduce? Where in the set list do I want to introduce that new song? What song should go before it or after it that gives it a little bit of support? And then where do I want to land the plane? How do I bring all of this time that we've shared together in singing and declaring who God is? How do I kind of bring that to some sort of conclusive ending, right? How do you end a paragraph? So have a roadmap. I think that's really important. And so that's going to require you to just kind of look before and after certain songs. And like I said, if I'm starting with a new song, I start with that one. If I don't have a new song to introduce, then I start to really seek, what's that one song? What's that one moment I want us all to be a part of? And then I start to build out the set that way. So that's number 1. Number 2, key flow. Okay? Key flow matters. What key is the first song, second song, third song, and fourth song? So there's a little bit of science to this, but I think if you wanted to experiment with it, if you're not familiar with playing an instrument, and maybe some of us are, I want to cover this real briefly. If you go from, let's say, the key of C, right, middle C, you're finishing a song in the key of C, and your next song is A flat. Okay, they're not what's called relative keys. And I like to think of it this way, okay? There are certain keys that live on the same floor. So you might be in a different room on the same floor, and then there are other keys that are on an entirely different floor. So let's say the key of C is on the first floor, A flat is on the third floor. Okay, so it's quite a jump to get there. You will feel the movement from getting from one to the next. And that's what I mean by key flow. Keep the key flow in mind. If you start with a song in one key, and then the next key goes here, and then the next key goes under that first key, it can feel a little bit jagged, and the sound and the experience can be a little bit awkward. And I think sometimes when I'm hearing worship set lists from new worship leaders, sometimes they haven't given thought to possibly just changing the key half a step so that the flow of the set stays more consistent. They don't have to be all in the same key, but if they're relative keys, it can work. So if you are a little bit familiar with music, then if you go from C to B flat, that's a pretty gentle move. If you go from C to D, again, that's a whole step down, a whole step up. Once you go from C to E, those are not relative at all. They sound completely different, etc. So I would have in mind the key flow. And at the end of the video, I'm gonna give you something that I use to help me when I'm putting together key flow. So keep that in mind. That's number 2. Number 3, connect the dots. Number 3, connect the dots. What I mean by that is, what does the song say about God, and what do all the songs say about God? Are all the messages kind of tied together? Are we talking about deep spiritual warfare in the first song, and then the second song I'm saying I need faith to fight, and then the third song I'm saying Lord have mercy on me, and on the fourth song I'm saying thank you God for your grace? Do all the songs tie together? That's so important, just to know what the themes of the songs say. One of the practices that I have is keeping in mind the praise and worship of a set. Now, for me, praise and worship, I do a whole different video on this. I'll include the link on this video if you want to watch that. But to me, praise is about declaring who God is, and worship is about responding to who He is. So praise is about declaring, and then worship is about responding. So some songs are just saying something very, very powerful. And so I might start a worship set with something that has a declaration. This is who God is, this is what He does, this is what He's going to do. But then I want to give people a chance to respond to God. God, I love you. God, I thank you. God, I worship you. Those are just some little bit of language. Like I said, it's in another video that I did. But connect the dots. Make sure that the songs tie into a consistency, so as people are in that time of worship with you, they're able to learn more about God through that time of worship and through that time of song, which is really one of our greatest responsibilities. So that's number 3. Number 4, know your margins. Number 4, know your margins. So depending on the situation where you lead worship, you may have to manage a clock. I have for years, and you may not. You may just have a time of worship, and that's awesome. Obviously, there's other things that need to happen in a worship service unless it's just a night of worship. But even in that context, you have to keep track of time somehow. So know your margins. One of the things I like to do is when I'm putting a set list together, for example, if they give me 20 minutes for a worship set, then I start to look at the songs and see how much margin I have between these songs. If I choose a 3-minute song, a 4-minute song, then I start to figure out how much time does that leave me at the end of the worship set so that I have some marginal time. Maybe I can step into a moment and set up that song. Maybe I can take a moment where we kind of pause before we go back into a chorus. All of that is what I mean when I say know your margins. Know where the breathable room is between each song, because that's where we get to lead and shepherd people through the experience of singing songs. Number 5, okay, here's the 5th one. Think about transitions. Think about transitions. And what I mean by that is, how does it feel to go from this song to this song? Now, earlier we talked about key flow, right? Being on the first floor to the third floor, and a key change can have a significant impact, especially if your eyes are closed and you're in a moment and you're just there, and then all of a sudden someone changes the key. You could feel that. Your ears can notice that shift, especially when they're not near each other. Well, the same thing can happen coming out of a song going into another song, and especially, hear this, especially with tempo. You might have a song that's really, really fast, way above 110, and then you're going into a song that's 63 BPMs. I mean, that is a significant shift in how people are going to feel. And remember, music evokes emotional responses. People feel the music, they feel the energy of it, they feel the tempo of it. Sometimes we're clapping, and all of a sudden we've just gotta stop because the song is so slow in its tempo or so deep in its context that it can be quite the dip. So how does it feel to go from this song into this song? And there's a couple of things you can do. For example, if you have a song that's super fast and then you want to go into a song that's maybe mid-tempo, or you want to go to a song that's a little bit slower, one of the ways that you can do that is by holding the ending longer. So you end it, you crash it, you just hold that ending longer, you stay there for a moment, you declare praises, and you let the kind of chord just stay where it is, and then you launch into that tempo. That's one of the ways you can kind of move people past the energy and speed of that song to kind of get prepared to the next song. Just a little free tip for you. I want to give you 2 things that I do personally that have helped me for a long time, and I still do them, and I hope they're just little bonuses. So here, 2 Jedi tricks to close here. 2 Jedi tricks. Are you ready? Number 1, I use iTunes. I literally have a playlist in iTunes that says fast songs or worship songs up, and then worship songs down. I have fast songs and I have slow songs. Now, when I list it in iTunes, I actually will recategorize it, not to say the artist's name, but I will put the key of the song there in the genre. I would change that field and I would write in the key. So I have all my fast songs and I write all the keys, the key of B, D, C, whatever, B flat, A flat, whatever it is. And I list them that way. And then I also have the same thing for the slow songs. It helps me when I'm sitting in a moment and I'm trying to visualize, okay, I want to go from this song to that song. So I play this song in this key, and then as it's finishing, I will click the other song, and it kind of helps me get into the moment a little bit to kind of forecast what that might feel like in a moment. Works for me, not sure if it works for you, but just something that I do personally. And then number 2, which I mentioned earlier, is I know my song times. I really memorize all of my song times. So if it's the first 2 songs, I might not need to know what that total amount of time is, but I'm familiar that that's about 3.5. This one's about 4.5. But once I start to get deeper into the set, I start to really look at how long a song is, and then I start to marginalize what I want to do in between songs. And I'll give you one more Jedi trick, free of charge. One more Jedi trick. If you've ever wanted to go from one key to a different key and they're not on the same floor, let's go back to our example earlier. If you're in the key of C and you want to go to the key of A flat, one of the ways to do that, well, there's a couple of ways. Number 1, you can do a verbal transition. You can take them out of the song and give thanks to God, or repeat some of the lyrics of that previous song just for a few moments while that new key gets established. If there's a good rhythmic pattern, sometimes I've actually started with the drums by themselves to kind of break off the idea we were on and take us into the new one. So some of that stuff just came out. I hope it helps you. Ways for creating worship set lists. Those are my 5 top things that I do, and a couple of Jedi tricks that I think continue to help me even to this day. I hope it helps you. Do me a favor, if these help you, share it with someone, subscribe, and from my heart to yours, until next time.